Hello, everybody. This is Michelle Chalfant with the Adult Chair, and I am delighted today to have a very, very special guest. Her name is Ramona Reid, and she is the owner of the Nashville Center for Alternative Therapy. She's an LMT. She's the host of the Holistic Revolution radio show, which is maybe why you recognize her name, because she has actually had me on her radio show 2 times. And what's really exciting is after one of the shows that I was on with Ramona, we got to talking and I asked her more about what she did. And what came up is that she also, in addition to what I just mentioned, is an intuitive Enneagram coach. So I was thrilled to learn more about that. I actually had the training probably 10 years ago and I've done nothing with it. So she refreshed my mind about it. And I thought, God, that's really, really, really interesting stuff. This month, we've talked a lot about in the newsletter and even on Facebook about being a fraud. And the Enneagram kind of fit quite nicely into that because it helps us to understand really who we are and then how to own it. So Ramona Reid, thank you so much for joining me today and to talk about this Enneagram.
Thank you, Michelle. I could talk about the Enneagram all day. My friends make fun of me because I often geek out on it. So.
Well, I'm glad. If we can just have 30 minutes to an hour, that would be fantastic.
That's perfect.
So, I mean, you and I talked about it for a long time, and you actually gave me a session so I could understand more about it. And it was fascinating. That was when I said, you will be on my show because I want everyone to learn about what this is because I found it so helpful. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what the Enneagram is? Anything you want to say about it that would be helpful to my listeners?
Okay, so I found out about it about 6 years ago, and it is a personality typing system. In essence, and sort of like Myers-Briggs, if you've heard of that, that's a personality typing system where it tells you, what you are. The difference I found with the Enneagram is it also offers you a pathway out of that. So it's not just here's your personality, but here's your personality and here's how to dissolve those walls of that and become your most authentic self. So I was going through a period of time where I was doing a lot of work on trying to figure out who I was and what the cause of my suffering was. Because as I'll talk about in a little bit, I'm one of the heart types. And so there's a lot of sadness and grief that goes along with that when we are in our ego. So I would read books. I read a lot of Buddhist teaching books and Christian teaching books and a lot of spiritual paths. And I've got a lot of tools for my tool chest through those, through Pema Chodron and Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle and a lot of different ideas and thoughts out there. And like I said, I was able to learn a lot through that. But when I found out about the Enneagram, I realized that while those things weren't inaccurate, they were all very accurate for me. They weren't complete. And the Enneagram it gave me a sense of completion and I will be learning about it forever. But it answered questions for me that I didn't even realize that I had. Yeah. So I learned about a little bit more. I learned about my type. I'm a type 2. And I learned about the heart types in general. And then I learned about the mind types and the body types. And that's how it's set up, is the Enneagram asserts that we're one of 9 personality types. And of these personality types, 3 of them are heart types. 3 of them are mind types, or the thinking triad. And then 3 of them are the gut triad, the instinctual triad, the body types. So even just learning about my type, I feel like I grew so much just learning about that. And then I was able to identify past relationships, my parents, just different ideas through these different types. And it was illuminating.
So how is it helpful for you to learn?
Well, it gives you, what the Enneagram teaches you is that we all have a virtue. We all have a gaining wisdom, and we're the source of that virtue. And it also teaches us that there's levels of development inside our type, and then as we kind of, travel inside those levels of development, we can have reactions from our ego. And that's where our vice or our passion or pathos will come in. And that's what sabotages things, relationships, and peace. So it taught me, first of all, this wasn't about me trying to type people or figure other people out. This was a very personal path initially that I was on. So it taught me, first of all, as a type 2, as an example, I'll use myself as an example. As a type 2, twos are the source of love. The heart types in general have a relationship with wanting to get attention. And so each of those 3 types, the 2s, 3s, and 4s, have that relationship with wanting to get attention. They just go about it different ways. So, and it's all out of an idea that they want love in some way. So it taught me that a lot of my suffering, well, all of my suffering was self-inflicted from my ego, which, we talked a little bit about off mic. That would be related to your adolescent chair, which is your reactive self, the one that protects your child. So I learned that all of these things that I felt were happening to me was just me being a victim.
Are you saying that we're born with an Enneagram type, or when does how does that play into our development, I guess would be the right question, maybe?
Right.
Okay.
So we all have an Enneagram type, yes. They believe that we're born with. And so if you experience trauma, it's not going to cause you to become a different type. It's going to cause you to have, we all have a childhood message that's lost. And so let's say, just for the 2, I'll start with that. The virtue would be love, unconditional love. There is some sort of lost childhood message there where 2s don't believe that they can be loved unconditionally. They try to recreate what they feel like they're lacking outside of themselves. So instead of being the source of love, then we try to recreate it outside of ourselves, which is the cause of a lot of suffering.
Okay.
So, and then, going around the Enneagram types, we all have this virtue and then this lost childhood message. And so we all try to recreate our virtue outside of ourselves instead of realizing that we're the source of it, not just for ourselves, but for all of us.
Interesting. See, I think this is fascinating. I love it. And I could talk to you about it all day too. So for people listening that know absolutely nothing about it, okay, I'm trying to think about what would be beneficial, because maybe people that are listening want to know, like, well, gosh, what type am I? They might want to know that. So is there a way you can give us maybe a very small summary of maybe what each type is,
Yes.
each number, and then people that are listening can say,
Right.
they can identify with it.
Right.
Okay.
So the way it's broken down, like I said before, there's the triad. So there's 3, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the body types because that's where generally they do it. This is an oral tradition of learning. This is not, I've read many books on it, but historically this was taught orally. And so it's, this is how they initially would teach it. And the body types are the more physical, presence types. So it's a good place to start. So the body types have a relationship with physicality, like I said, and vitality and life force and connection. Okay, so those 3 types have a relationship also to anger. So the 8s are the challenger types. Their virtue is vitality, life force, power. Their vice, I should say, pathos, would be anger. So what happens is with an 8, let's just say their lost childhood messages, you have vitality, you have power. They forget that. So they try to recreate that power outside of themselves and can be very forceful and challenging. And there's ideas of, famous figures of 8s. They would say that Hitler was an 8, that Martin Luther King Jr. was an 8. Very powerful leaders. You can tell a very strong, healthy 8 is one who just sort of exudes power when he walks in a room or she walks in a room, instead of trying to recreate it by being powerful. That's the difference. So then the 9, next to the 8 is the 9. And this is all a diagram that I can't explain on the radio, but there's diagrams on the internet that you can find. But these all kind of go in a circle, and there's pathways between them. But the 9 would be, it's often called the peacemaker. But I've found in other publications actually call it the peacekeeper, because the truth is that 9s don't really want to make anything. They're not an assertive type. Peacekeeper makes more sense. They're in the body triad. They're the grounded, connected types. And they're very into feeling connected, feeling peaceful. Their pathos would be in going to sloth, where they would just feel like they're not important. And they would just kind of disappear in that way. The type next to that is the 1s, the last of the body triad. They're the reformers, the moralists. So the reformers are the ones that feel like things need to be a certain way. They're the ones that are going to sign the petitions. They're the ones that are going to try to change things. Their relationship with anger is repressed. So the 8s express anger, the 9s deny that they have any anger and wanting to keep the peace, and the 1s repress their anger. So that's how they deal with that. Around the circle there is the heart types, the 2s, 3s, and 4s. The 2s are the helpers. That's what, that's what I type as a 2. 2s are the helpers. They're the source of love. They try then sometimes to recreate that love when they have a stress point out of sometimes manipulative means. They also like to project their needs on other people because it's not safe for them to have needs. They don't have needs. So they try to take care of other people, like the Jewish mother. The ones who are like, no, you need love, when really
she needs love.
She needs love, yeah. The 3s are the achievers. They also have a relationship with attention. They do it by trying to achieve and do and be good at what they're doing. 3s are really ambitious. They're competent, and they have a lot of energy, keeping in mind that they're doing this out of a need to feel loved and have attention. So noticing this about themselves is important. That's why it can help with feeling like a fraud. Often 3s do feel like frauds. The 4s next to that are the individualists. Sometimes they're called the romantics in different books, but they are the individualists. The introspective types, they can be brooding and a little dark when they get to their stress point. But again, attention, trying to get that. The way that they do it is different. Much like the body type's relationship to anger is different, the heart type's relationship to attention is very different. One of them is more outgoing, trying to grasp for it. One of them is, trying to do it, trying to get it by what they do. And one of them is trying to achieve it by kind of withdrawing and becoming, come to me. So, and there's, like I said, there's lots of famous figures that would fall into that. Like they say that Rumi is a 4. Mother Teresa would be a high level 2, very healthy 2. So Oprah Winfrey, they think might be a 3, achieving type. So then you get to the mind types, the 5, 6s, and 7s. The 5, 6s, and 7s. The 5s are the investigators. So they have this clarity of mind in their highest self. That's what their virtue is. And they also have, in their stress point, is this fear of radical contact. And so what they'll often tend to do is, under stress, their ego will come in and they'll just withdraw. And sometimes I've heard it explained, specialize in the unimportant, where they will do a lot of investigative things with computers or with reading or studying. And it's a lot of times because they're afraid of not knowing. So they get out of touch with their virtue, which is actually clarity and knowing. So then there's the 6s, the loyalists. They're the ones really great friendships, very trusting and loyal. They also are the ones that are always thinking about what could happen in the future and preparing for it mentally. So the 5, 6s, and 7s have this relationship to fear and anxiety. That's what theirs is. So the 6 anxiety comes in as, I need to know what could happen. I need to be prepared for it. So they're never really in the present, which is the problem for all the types. If we were all in the present, and we would be a lot healthier because we wouldn't be trying to think about what we could try to achieve and what we could try to
Interesting.
Yeah. And then there's the 7s. The 7s are the epicures, the enthusiasts. You're a 7.
Yay. I am.
So the 7s are really busy. They're very productive. They like to do a lot. No grass is going to grow under their feet. They're very committed in a relationship, but when it's over, they move on, generally. The life of the party, in a lot of ways. A lot of that, though, that kind of jumping from one thing to the other is out of a fear of being controlled or something happened to them or getting hurt or sick. And so that's where, so we all can face anxieties, the same anxiety, but where we're going to go is where it's going to change. Like if you and I have an anxiety about money, for instance, let's say you're feeling anxious about finances. You might go to, okay, well, I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to jump over here, and I'm going to keep myself busy, and I'm going to think about it a lot and have some anxiety. Whereas I'm going to grasp for attention from my partner or from my kid or from my friends. It's the same anxiety, but we express it differently.
Interesting. So let's say, again, someone's listening and they go, oh, yeah, I'm relating to a 4. Like I'm a number 4. So what do they do? Like what would, so, and I like what we talked about prior to the show, which is so interesting because this is the middle chair. This is that adolescent chair.
Mm-hmm.
This is the personality of who we are. And it forms, you said, through this Enneagram, or this Enneagram kind of teaches us more about our personality.
Well, our personality is innate. What this teaches us is our pathways into what they call disintegration or integration, where some people choose to call their stress points. So we have the personality, and there can be people that are, very high levels of development inside their type that you just see their virtues. Generally, though, we usually live in the average range. There's 9 levels inside each personality. We generally live in that average range. And then we can, pick up, unfortunately, parts of the below average range, which are the unhealthy bad habits, reactions, addictions, things like that. So, but, your goal would be to not become the best version of your neighbor over here that you're coveting, but the best version of yourself. So finding out your type is important, because I can't ever be the best 7 out there. I can only be the highest 2 that I can. And so what the Enneagram does is it gives you grace for your ego. It gives you grace for your personality, your reactions. So you're always going to be the same type. But there's so many other variations in it that we really can't get into in an hour radio show. But
and the thing that I really loved is that it helps us to see that we are who we are, and we don't have to. We can stop comparing ourselves to other people and stop being what we think of being, like when we're frauds. When I say, "Oh my God, I'm such a fraud," maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just me. And when we compare ourselves to all these other people, that's when we get ourselves into trouble. But what I liked about this is that it really helps to identify who we are, what our struggles are, what our triggers are, and then what do we do with them? What are we striving to be? Who are we striving to be? And kind of like you just said, if I'm a 7, I can't be a 2.
Right.
I have my own issues to work on, my 7 issues, and you have yours. And now I know what I can work on and what I can focus on and that kind of thing.
And here's what's also cool about it is the Enneagram teaches you about the box of personality that you've been living in. So it teaches you the ins and outs, and it's, from my opinion, one of the most, if not the most complete system for that, because it goes into so many more details than I can explain here. We all have, like, for instance, paths of integration or stress points. I actually will go to the 8 when I'm stressed out, and I will go to the 4 when I'm kind of integrating into my higher levels. So we can develop all of the different virtues of the different types. Of course, we're all of the different types. And what the Enneagram teaches you is, here's the box you've been in. It doesn't put you in a box. Some people feel that way, like, oh, that just puts me in a box and I feel kind of trapped inside this typing system. And really what it's doing is, no, you've been there. You've been there. We've all been in this box. And then it teaches you how to dissolve the walls of that box so that you can pick up on all of the virtues of all of the types. So yes, you can only become the best version of yourself. But at the same time, sometimes it's like, wow, I'm really picking up my 5 energy today. And I feel like really powerful in that. And sometimes my stress point where I go to 8 and become very challenging and angry, sometimes I take pride in that, because I'm like, oh, good, I need to do that. Because as a 2, we tend to help other people and not help ourselves. So I need some of that, quote, negative energy, unquote, that where anger comes out sometimes is a really healthy, good thing for 2s. So it's all in how you look at it, but it's all in, I think, self-study, self-awareness, learning all about the different ins and outs of the Enneagram, which would take you decades. There's people that dedicate their entire lives to this. So
wow. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? It was a lot.
Yeah, it's really difficult to explain just a little bit about the Enneagram.
You can't. Yeah. So what else? Is there anything else that people would benefit from knowing about the Enneagram?
Yeah, so if you want to know more about it, you can always go online. There's different tests that you can take online to figure out what your type is. We do that when we do intakes at the center, where I help figure out people's personality type, their Enneagram type, along with, doing a whole body map and history and all of that. So there's other ways you can do it. You can read some of these books, any of the books that are out there, Wisdom of the Enneagram, the 9 Personality Types, books by Riso Hudson, Helen Palmer. They're all fascinating. If you're more of like, I don't know, I kind of am more interested in like religious teachings or practices, there's Richard Rohr's book about the Christian perspective on the Enneagram. I mean, the Enneagram is being taught, I think the number one application is in corporations, but it's being taught in relationship counseling, boardrooms, schools, psychotherapy. It's being taught in a lot of different applications, churches, to help build a team in a lot of ways. Like so let's say you could know that your mother was a type 3 and your dad was a type 7 and you're a type 6. it's just going to make you understand your relationship so much better. You're going to be able to see, oh, they weren't being mean to me. They were just in their ego, in their pattern.
And so would you say that then, I like that example. So then we notice maybe when others are projecting their stuff on us. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And most of it comes from just self-awareness of your own type. And then if you can know, if you can learn then after that, other people's types, and then you can identify and start recognizing, oh, I think mom's a 6, or I think, my partner's a 9. If you can do that, then you can understand them better and give them grace for when they do come at you with their ego or with their reactive self. You don't have to take it so personally because you realize, oh, you're just maybe having an unhealthy reaction to something,
Wow. You know what I feel is that this helps us raise our awareness and put us right in the adult chair, because then we can become the observer of other people. Like you said, if they're being nasty toward us or they're not being so kind, we have a deeper understanding, and then we're not triggered. We're not upset by that.
Right.
Love that.
So let me explain a little bit, like an example of that as a 2 for me. It used to be, I was very reactive around, because I'm also one of there's so much more to go into, but I'm one of the 3 rejection types. There's 3 types, that 2s, 5s, and 8s, that have a relationship with rejection where we just do not handle it well. Well, I would have a lot of suffering from that. Once I realized that I was creating this victim from being rejected, I realized that the people weren't actually rejecting me. I was creating it because that was part of my ego. It was part of my personality, is to feel rejected. So once I'm able to see myself and see my ego patterns, at this point, what it's done is it's helped shrink my reaction time from an emotion to a response. It used to be, and then to the wisdom from that response. So it used to be something would happen. I would react out of my adolescent chair or out of my personality, out of my ego. And then maybe a week later, I'd be like, maybe 2 weeks later or a month later, I'd be like, wow, that was me really being reactive. And that's after a lot of work. Some people don't ever see that. After a lot of work, therapy and reading all of these books and trying to be aware of where I created my suffering, I would have these, this month-long or 2-month-long period of being like, oh, can't believe that person's such a jerk. And then I started realizing, and that started shrinking, that time started shrinking. So that something that happened to me recently was I was feeling anxious about something, and I actually was able to say, I wonder when I'm going to start reaching out for love.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm feeling anxious about, it was a scheduling, timing, pressure thing. And I saw myself later on that day actually send out a text. See, this is what 2s like to do, is when they need love, their ego goes, I'm going to give love instead of self-care. So then now what I can do is that reaction time is shrunk. I can be like, I'm having some anxiety. I think I need a pedicure or a massage. You need to be the source of that for yourself instead of making other people suffer by making them be the source of it for you.
So you're not making others responsible for your happiness or to heal you or to help you feel more balanced. Right. I love that. That's what I'm all about. This is fabulous. You kind of touched on this, but I'm thinking of people that are really stuck and they can't move. They're just stuck. They've got maybe the ruminating thought about how could so-and-so have done that to me? So this would be helpful because then they can have a deeper understanding of why that other person did that to them. Correct?
If you're doing a lot of overthinking, a lot of monkey mind, you might be one of the mind types. Because I would do thinking, but it was all about love and attention and rejection and how I could be more lovable or what was wrong with me. Mind types don't necessarily go there. They go into the monkey mind, intellectualizing, analyzing, trying to figure out and prepare. And it's exhausting, I would imagine.
And that was 5, 6, 7?
5, 6, and 7.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. So they have this relationship with anxiety and fear that can be overwhelming. And so I would, encourage one of the mind types to be more present, to be in the moment, to find tools like meditations, even quick drop-ins, where they can remember that that's all illusion. That's all just trying to control something that might even not be true. And to be in the moment and be present. With heart types, I would, try to encourage them to be more emotionally responsible for themselves and more self-caring. And then for body types, remembering their presence. Again, mindfulness, being here in their body, realizing that everything is okay. They don't need to do or force. And to recognize their anger for what it is. It's an egoic reaction, whether it's expressed, repressed, or denied at all. With a 9, I might, encourage them to learn how to get in touch with their anger, because in the denial of it, they're creating problems. The body types, those 3 types, the 8s, 9s, and 1s, are called the gut triad, because oftentimes they stuff their emotions and end up with digestive issues. So if someone came with a digestive issue, I might think that they might be one of the 3 body types, the gut types. If someone comes in a lot of migraines, a lot of overthinking, anxiety, they might be one of the mind types. And again, this isn't, verbatim, but it could be. The heart types generally have a lot of grief and sadness and shame and pride and those feelings. So
I know you've been seeing clients for quite a while doing this, but have you had any clients that just really had some profound shifts by learning this?
After learning what their type was, absolutely. I mean,
Really?
Emotional releases. I had a client recently in the past couple weeks that wrote a review on the Facebook page about how it changed her life learning about the Enneagram, because it gave her permission to be herself. She realized that her addiction, she's not, using substances anymore.
Wow.
After one time, telling her, this is what your type, I believe, is, and let's talk about it and let's go through it. And, she got the book and has been doing a lot of reading about it. And that's just one example. It's illuminating and it's life-changing. And it sounds very, culty for me to be saying that, but it's so true, because it allows you to have all of those questions that, like I said, I didn't even know that I had. And it's like, oh, this makes sense to me. The mind types love it. Like I just had an intake yesterday with a 5, and she's like, oh, I'm going to get that book and read all about it. I was like, of course you are. You're the investigator. So it's just, it's what it is looking at someone, finding out their type, and helping them use their strengths instead of having them reactive to their pathos, reactive to their egos. So
fascinating. I love it all. It makes me want to get the book now. Pull out all my old training notes and go through everything again. Yes. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share? Have we kind of...
we've touched on it.
I know.
There's so much. I mean, obviously, there's. I think if you were to get the book, find out about your type. Get the Wisdom of the Enneagram book or the 9 Personality Types book, and figure out if this is something that resonates for you. Because to some people, it might not resonate for them. They might not be ready to read it. They might not want to read it. Again, I tried lots of different, approaches to self-awareness and work. This just, to me, it cut right to the chase. There was no BS, and it made sense and resonated to me. So if you feel like it does resonate for you, if there's something in you that's like, yeah, this sounds really interesting, then, go online, take the test. There's free tests online with the Enneagram Institute, and figure it out. And then start reading the books. If you want a consult, you can. If you live in Nashville, or even if you don't, you can always get in touch with me, and I would love to help you out with that.
Oh, so that was my next question is, so do you do this like via Skype, or can people from out of state, out of the country call you?
I do.
Oh.
Yes.
Tell us about, so you offer sessions.
It's a one-on-one consult. So again, if you want to just study this online like I did, and then there's other ways to do it too. If you'd like to learn a little bit about more about it first, you can get the book. You can, one thing that I did was I ordered a set of DVDs that I listened to for like months. It was all these different interviews with Enneagram experts, and everything that I learned just added to my toolbox. And I didn't find anything that didn't add to it. I didn't find anything that didn't resonate. It all just made it more and more and more clear. So the more you learn about it, the more, I think, information you'll have about yourself and your loved ones. So yeah, I mean, you can always do a Skype session with me if you'd like, or come into my office in Nashville and do a session. It's just a one-on-one kind of getting to know your type. And if you already know your type, exploring how you can utilize that information to become like the highest version of yourself.
Love that. Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing more like out of town kind of sessions, because I think that so many people need to learn this. I think it's fascinating. So thank you so much. So how do people reach you? Can you let us know?
My website is www.mynashvillecenter.com. You can also send an email to Ramona, Ramona, at mynashvillecenter.com. And there's more information on the website. You can schedule that online or just give me a call.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been enlightening, and I really appreciate you doing this show with us today.
Thank you so much.
Okay.